Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we have Brixton Metals for our webinar. As you can see, we have a company representative here live. My name is Jacob Willoughby, and I'm Vice President of Research here at Red Cloud Securities. And with us today is the Chairman, CEO, and President of Brixton Metals, Gary Thompson.
Hello, everyone.
We'll begin today's webinar with a presentation from Gary that will provide us with an overview of the company and update us on the various exploration properties. After that, we can take questions from participants. I'd like to remind everyone that you can type in your questions right now or during the presentation or during the question period at any time during this live webinar, and we welcome your questions. But before we begin, as always, we must cover off the disclosures. So for Brixton Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made during the presentation, and I direct listeners to the cautionary note on the second page of the company's corporate presentation, located on the company's website, and you'll see it here today. For Red Cloud Securities, please see the full disclaimer and disclosures on our website, redcloudsecurities.com. And I highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. Also, we note that this webinar does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Red Cloud specific disclosures related to Brixton are the following. In the last 12 months preceding the date of issuance of the research report or recommendation, Red Cloud Securities, Inc. has performed investment banking services and has been retained under a service or advisory agreement by the issuer. And in the last 12 months, a partner, director, or officer of Red Cloud Securities, Inc. or the analyst involved in the preparation of the research report has received compensation for investment banking services. Now I'm pleased to introduce Gary Thompson, who will now tell us about Brixton Metals.
Well, thanks for having me here. Well, we'll get right into it, I guess. Welcome, everyone. So just to start off with Brixton, obviously we have the four assets, and maybe we'll just kind of flip through the slides here and talk a little bit about that. Obviously, the forward-looking statement, safe harbor. So our strategy for 2020 is really primarily going to be focused on the Hog Heaven mine project and Thorn. While the company has four assets, we decided to spend a little bit of money on the Atlan and Langus, which we're actively drilling currently, but fairly small budgets compared to the Hog Heaven and Thorn. We believe the Hog Heaven is ready to go. We spent a number of years now compiling historical work, and now it's ready to we think advance with some drilling. And then the Thorn obviously has been our flagship for many years. We didn't get to complete the geophysical survey at Camp Creek last year because the winter came a bit early on us. So the goal is to get out there and finish that survey over the Camp Creek porphyry target, and then take a bit of a step back and look at the number of high potential geochemical signatures that we have for potential new porphyry targets on the Thorn property. So and then of course a bit of work in Atlan, which is just more grassroots style prospecting and solid geochem. So here's the snapshot of the team. Fairly technically strong team, I'd say, and we've all had successes in building companies and advancing resource development. I won't go through all the breakdown of all the experiences, but you can see that. You can read that at your leisure on the website. But I'd say that we're a strong technical team and discovery-driven guys to get out there and find these new resources and advance them towards feasibility. That's really the objective here. So market cap of the company is around 25 million. You can see we've developed a bit of a trough. Now pushing in that sort of 17, 18, 19 cent range as of recently. But considering the company has about 144 million shares out, we've traded a lot of stock. So really good liquidity in Brixton over the last 6 or 7 months. I think if you were to take a snapshot from mid-July 2019, we've got to be north of 103 million shares. And considering 40 or 50% of the company is held in strong hands, that's a pretty good turnover. Of course, with Mr. Eric Sprott holding the largest single position in the company. So the company has got a north of $5 million cash, and I think most of that's going to go in the ground this year. And no debt, of course. Next slide, please. So here's our portfolio in Canada, mainly in the US. Obviously, good jurisdictions to work. You can see by the numbers there, what we're doing, where we're at. But we're pretty excited about 2020 and the assets. Each one of these projects have generated exceptional drill results to date, and we're confident that we can continue to do that. And we just want to advance them along the curve. And we have been in discussions and looking for potential JV partners on some of these. As a junior company, you can't advance them all aggressively. So if we could find the right partner for one or more of these, I think that makes sense. So I guess our strategy has really been, for this year, has been really threefold. Continue to do exploration at high impact targets, look for JV partners and potential M&A opportunities if we could find a like-minded company like Brixton to grow. Ultimately, that's our goal here, is to grow the business and create value for shareholders that way. So we're going to run this little video that we just launched yesterday on the Hog Heaven Mine Project.
Brixton's Hog Heaven Silver Gold Copper Project is located in northwestern Montana, USA. The Hog Heaven Project was first explored by Anaconda in 1913. From 1928 to 1975, the project produced 6.7 million ounces of silver at an average grade of 29 ounces per ton. The project is easily accessible by road, only 55 miles from Kalispell. A historic non-NI 43-101 compliant resource of 47.3 million ounces of silver was established based on the 1989 feasibility study. The project was permitted, but due to low metal prices in the 1990s, the mine was not built. In 2017, Brixton acquired 100% interest in the project, subject to royalty interests. Extensional rifting occurred 30 to 36 million years ago, resulting in the Hog Heaven volcanic complex, which cut and overlay the much older basement-late Proterozoic belt supergroup rocks, which host the Rivette, Montanore, and other stratiform copper-silver deposits in the district. To date, 722 drill holes totaling over 55,000 meters have been completed. Significant copper intervals from the historic drilling include 18.3 meters of 4.5% copper, 44.2 meters of 1.4% copper, and at depth, a 3-meter interval of 2.8%. 68% of the drill intervals were not analyzed for copper. Significant gold intervals which ended in mineralization include 67 meters of 2.7 grams per ton gold, 105 meters of 1.4 grams per ton gold, 3.1 meters of 26.1 grams per ton gold. Significant silver intervals with several holes ending in mineralization include 12 meters of 1,088 grams per ton silver, 91.4 meters of 266.9 grams per ton silver, 158.5 meters of 152.5 grams per ton silver, 91.4 meters of 232.6 grams per ton silver. The highest grades occur within zones of intense silica and acid leaching and are interpreted as feeder structures. In 2018, Brixton completed a 724 line kilometer VTEM and MEG survey. You can see a ring caldera feature on the VTEM geophysics. Most of the historic workings and mines are on the margins of this deep conductor or interpreted intrusive complex. The historic workings located on the southern margin of the ring caldera have never been drilled and is a high priority target for 2020. The Martin mine encountered veins at the 100-foot level, which assayed 9.6 grams per ton gold and 960 grams per ton silver. The next step for the Hog Heaven project will be to conduct confirmation drilling and drill test the newly identified feeder structures and high-priority targets. The short-term goal is to define a maiden NI 43-101 resource and advance the project through a preliminary economic assessment. Brixton Metals trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol BBB, and on the OTCQB under the ticker BBBXF. Visit us online at brixtonmetals.com. Thanks for watching.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So we can see why we're excited about getting at Hog Heaven. We have not drilled any holes there yet, but now we're ready to go. And there's just a little snapshot of, I guess, the work that's been done to date. I really think the takeaways here is that this project is permitted, and we're drill ready to go here, and with anticipation of start drilling in May. So what's interesting about this project that it's on private land, so we don't have to deal with the Forest Service or BLM. So like I say, we're permitted and ready to go. So we're pretty excited to get down there and get some new drilling on this project. We think, well, given that a lot of these results have not seen the public market, it's because it was in a private company. Most of the work was done by Coca Mines, which was private. So I think that's a good opportunity to highlight an exciting new project into the market in May-June timeframe. We should have those initial drill results hitting the market. So I kind of mentioned that in the video already. It's really just advance the project through to a resource and PEA. So the next focus for us is going to be, I guess the way we've sort of structured our strategy is, right now we're drilling a little bit at Langus. By May, June, we're going to be working in Hog Heaven, and then by mid-June we'll be up here at Thorn, working on this project. You can see by the land position there, it's now one of the largest claim holdings in the Golden Triangle, some 2,300 square kilometers. We do believe there's a path to Tidewater, and now with the recent new claims on the southern end, we actually tie into the old Golden Bear mine, which has road access as well. So really exciting project. We continue to show promise. Every time we've worked on this project, we find new areas of mineralization. So I know we've been at it for a number of years here, but the budgets have generally been fairly small. And this is not a low-cost place to work, given there's no direct road access for where we're working right now currently. But really good upside opportunity, and we're excited about what we can find this year. Next slide. So historically, most of the work on the Thorn project is really focused in around the Camp Creek target. The Outlaw Zone was worked by Chevron in the 80s. And we started working on this new target called Chivas. And you can see the scale of this it's like a 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer area within this massive land position. In fact, that's an old claim map that you see there. The point is that most of the historical work and the work that we've done is really within we'll say a small area compared to the size of the project opportunity. So we think there's a lot more to discover on this property yet. So some of the work that we did in 2019, I think one of the takeaways is that while we have all this indications of porphyry mineralization, high sulfidation, high grade gold, silver, copper veins at surface, this is really the first time, 2019 was the first time we've actually intersected the porphyry style mineralization in this Camp Creek area. So the hole 162, the last 230 meters of it, we're getting in porphyry style veining and increasing mineralization towards the bottom of the hole. Now we shut the hole down early. The hole was actually targeted to go to 1,000 meters, but again, it was an early onset of winter that really kind of pushed us out of there a little bit earlier than we would have liked. And of course, the big hole that we drilled in the hole 150, 554 meters of about 2 grams of gold equivalent, with 136 meters of 5 grams gold equivalent. That was drilled in June 2019. The hole ended at 829 meters, ended in the breccia zone. We do believe, given the porphyry fragments that we're seeing, mineralized porphyry fragments in the diatreme, there is porphyry affinity. You have to look at the scale of this between hole 162 and 150, about a kilometer distance between the two. And in that gap, that's where we want to do the geophysics, is those three geophysics lines cutting across Camp Creek, sort of in and out of the page. that's going to hopefully give us some imaging to help vector our next round of drilling here. So it is a deep target. It's a blind porphyry target here, but it certainly looks like it's got scale. But we didn't want to, blow the whole budget and blow up our market cap trying to prove out a big deep porphyry here. We want to show that there's a porphyry that exists here, but we also want to highlight some shallow other porphyry targets on the property. So that's our strategy this year, is to take a bit of a step back, keep working on this Camp Creek to really nail that porphyry, and then see what else we can dig up on the property. Next slide. Just a little bit about hole 150. I'm not going to dwell on this, but some impressive copper intervals within this interval. This is the one hole. You can chop and change the hole either how you want it, but it's a pretty impressive mineralized zone in its own right. We do believe there's other diatreme breccias on the property. We just haven't had a chance to really do much drilling to follow them up. This was the Oban breccia zone where hole 150 was drilled. You can see right, the hole, it started in about 100 meters down. But there's some impressive mineralized intervals within this zone. It looks like to be about 100 plus meters wide of the best mineralization. And, it's got some potential to expand on this. And again, we think we have other polymetallic style breccias on the property that we've yet to tag into. And that's something we're going to continue to look on. But really the goal here is to find really the source of this driving that porphyry that's driving this type of mineralization. One of the targets on the property that we still think has upside potential is the Outlaw Gold Zone. This was the target that Chevron worked on in the 80s. This is not a porphyry system. This is a sediment-hosted stratiform gold-silver target. So we have stratiform, really a series of stacked gold horizons, also with structurally controlled mineralization as well. And you can see some of the numbers there, 60 meters of a gram. But the scale of this thing is quite impressive, 4.3 kilometers in strike. This year we plan to focus on the, if you go to the next slide, you can see on the west side of this target, closer to the Lejeune Creek. In 2018, we pulled up to 39 grams gold, 12.5 gram, 9 gram gold. This looks like a western extension of this trend, some higher grades. So we're going to spend a bit of time looking at that and see if we can maybe get a hole or two into this western end of the target. So it's a big system. We've only had really a handful of drill holes on this thing. I think there's, still has some upside on this target. Just a little bit on Atlan. Decided to take a little bit of a step back on Atlan. It's a large land position as well, 1,000 square kilometers, and really do more of what you see here in the red dots are the golden soils and prospecting. So not drill it this year is to really flesh out more, I think, targets. We think by doing more of this type of work, we can generate essentially more targets on the property. It's a big property, and I think it needs more of this type of work before we really start plowing holes in the ground. But good road access, lots of gold in this area. I tell people it's 30-40 kilometer by 30-40 kilometer area, and you've got gold coming out of all these drainages. So it's a big area. You've got a few other companies taking an interest in the area as well. So I think it's an exciting project to come for us. We'll just kind of keep chipping away at it, but again, a smaller budget than the other primary focus for us. So I guess in summary, we believe we do have a great portfolio, high impact targets. Each of these projects have generated exceptional results. We've got a good shareholder base with management invested. We have a discovery-driven team with a proven track record of success, and we think we're in a good position as the market starts to improve for us. A company with good liquidity, and so we're very excited for 2020. I think it's going to be a really big year for us, 2020. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. So we can start to go through questions from folks online here, but I thought just before we get to those, I'd ask you a couple just quick questions. So first, when do you think you can begin work at Hog Heaven in Montana?
The estimate is May, and we've had some discussions about, people suggesting we could go in there now. But you can always go in there now, I guess, and wrestle with snow, but we didn't want to spend money moving snow around. So I think May is sort of, we tried to go in there last year for a tour in April, and there's still a little bit of snow.
Mm-hmm.
So we're told by some of the locals that May should be looking pretty good for us.
Right. I know from our guys at Group 10 that you can get a lot of snow in Montana.
You can, yeah. No, I've driven through there in the winter sometimes, and the highways, and the pickets are way up high, the big walls of snow. But I don't think we're that bad in this area, from what I can tell. That historically hasn't been that much snow there, but it does get winter. Okay.
And then just another quick one, timing on results from Langus. Now, I know you're just starting drilling.
Yeah. Well, the drilling, what we liked about Langus, and the reason we acquired it, is it's easy, for infrastructure wise, it's pretty hard to beat. So good road access, cheap drilling. I think we're into our third hole there already.
Oh.
And we're drilling pretty shallow holes, sort of 50 to 100 meter holes. So I imagine that'll go pretty quick. Probably a couple of weeks, I would imagine we'll be done there. And then add another 2 or 3 weeks on that for, so say 5 weeks, you probably could see the initial results. Yeah, 5 or 6 weeks, we should start to get most of those results out.
So that'll be 8 to 10 holes, kind of?
Yeah, 10-ish holes, plus or minus a couple, I'd say.
Okay. So some questions from online. Someone asking about the pie chart from the presentation, the ownership structure. Is that up to date?
Yeah, that's current. Yeah.
Okay, right. And can you just remind us the actual percentage that Mr. Sprott holds?
It's about 19%.
19.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Right. So question from good question asking the cost per meter of drilling in the Triangle versus in Montana, perhaps even versus the Cobalt Camp.
Yeah, so let's start at the Cobalt Camp, because that's where we're drilling, and it's pretty much about as low as you can go. I think we're in that sort of 125 to 130 in the summer. We're probably 175, 180 right now this time of year. Thorn is on the other end of that. We're probably in that $500 per meter all-in drilling costs. That's assays, people, everything. Montana, we've yet to drill there, but based on our budgets and estimates and quotes we're getting from the contractors, and plus we have a U.S. Canada FX to deal with, we're probably in that, I'm going to say 300 to maybe 400 Canadian per meter.
Right, and a big factor in that is that Canadian exchange.
That is a big factor, yeah, when you're talking those kind of dollars. So obviously, we're going to do our best to mitigate those and get it cheaper. But we'll see how the first round goes. I think there's always ways to work the bugs out of those costs and how do you minimize them. The challenge is with the smaller budgets, you can't escape this. It's just your budgets are more expensive when you have a smaller budget. You've got a bigger program, you get economies of scale on everything, generally.
Mm-hmm. Interesting technical question on Hog Heaven. Wondering if you see any tellurium in assays from there, or if it was assayed for.
No and no. Most of the historical assays were really just gold, silver primarily, and like we say in the presentation, 68% of them ignored the copper, and we didn't get 30 element ICP and stuff like that. In the 70s and 80s when most of that drilling was done. So obviously we'll be going in there. The work that we do will be we'll be looking at the full suite, probably full acid digest. I mean, there's some evidence of a porphyry here based on some diatreme and mineralized fragments and stuff like that. But geologically, it's a fascinating project, and don't want to get into too much details on it. But we think there's some remobilization of mineralization through other events and that. But it's
right, and I think you had some university study work done there.
Yeah, we're still ongoing partnership with Montana Tech. We've got a couple of master students doing a whole suite of analysis on fluid inclusions and alteration and chemistry and paragenesis. So that's actually evolving quite nicely and providing some insight a little bit on. I mean, some of the lead isotope work is interesting because we're in the same rocks that host the Sullivan deposit, and they said it's the Sullivan deposit today, which is one of the largest lead zinc deposits in the world. Yeah. If you found one today, it'd be north of 20 billion in value. So we're in those types of rocks, and they've shown that there's some lead isotope work that connects to that style of deposit or mineralization, and we're like, yeah, that's interesting, but how does that fit into the story? We're not sure yet. So a little academic perhaps at this stage, but yeah, we're excited to get down and basically flesh out some of those questions, I guess, ourselves.
Sure. More questions. Okay, so a question about the historic drilling, I guess from Hog Heaven specifically. Do you have much of the core available? Could it be reassayed?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. It's all there,
Okay.
which is thankful. I know we've looked at some historic camps where everything is gone.
Yeah.
So we have all the core, we have all the cuttings. They had 5 C-can containers crammed full.
Oh, wow.
So we rebuilt a core facility last year, and we're going to be relogging some of that, and we're definitely going to be reassaying a certain amount of that, and definitely some of the bottom of the holes that have spread. We'll do some 4-acid digest on some of those to help vector into a porphyry there.
Okay. Question on, I guess, Hog Heaven again. Have you performed or do you plan to do some aerial geophysical surveys there?
Well, we've ran the VTAM mag. We have that already.
Mhm.
We're looking at perhaps some ZTAM or a mobile MT, which can go quite deep.
Yeah.
So we're looking at those. Not sure we'll do that on this initial budget. Obviously, you can always do IP. We're looking at potentially doing some of that deep seeing IP.
Mm-hmm.
I think our initial budget for this year is really going to focus on drilling, reassaying, select intervals, do some relogging, and do some geochem. The property's never been systematically soil sampled, so we got little patches here and there. So we want to run some lines over the property and get some good indications that way. So lots of work to be done. We'll kind of chip away at it.
Speaking of budgets that you touched on, you mentioned you have just over $5 million in cash right now, and I'm sure the company needs to keep a certain amount as sort of a safe level, and then have money for G&A.
Correct.
Have you decided what dollar amount that you want to spend on each of the 3 general projects?
Yeah, well, the flow through money we raised last year was like 2.1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's earmarked for Thorn and Atlan, and I would say, probably less than $500,000 in Atlan, say 400,000,
okay.
And then call it 1.6 or plus 1.6, 1.7 at Thorn.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the round numbers on the flow through the budget that we have right now. Hog Heaven, we're looking at, because of the FX, call it $1 million US, so 1.3 Canadian.
Sure.
And that should give us 6,000 feet, maybe something like that.
Okay.
See how that comes in, plus the geochem and other geological reanalysis and stuff like that.
And do you have plans for drilling at Thorn, or is it you're now more into an evaluation stage, compilation stage?
Yeah, we decided to defer any additional drilling until later this year. There's still an idea that we would like to drill 1 or 2 holes there, but we wanted to get that geophysics done on the Camp Creek that we didn't get last year, just to see what that shows us. We wanted to do some reanalysis of some old core for 4-acid digest to help vector maybe some porphyry targets there as well. So we'll combine those 2 early on in the season, and then give us time to digest that, and maybe later on in the summer, like maybe July, August type window, but pick a few select holes that we want to drill. But really take a step back, and we've got some other interesting targets on the property that that we haven't put boots on the ground to. So we didn't want to get too tunnel visioned on a deep target when we could have something nice, juicy, high, call it high grade. We came up with a new motto for Brixton, and our new motto is high grade only. So we'll look, see if we can find something new, and I'm pretty confident. I mean, given our track record and success on the Thorn project, I kid you not, every single season we've found something new and exciting there. So I don't doubt we're going to continue to find stuff on the property. And now that the property is large, I guess that's also bigger opportunity, but also poses some challenges too. But I think it makes sense to take a step back and see what else we can uncover there.
Especially with the costs involved in drilling in the triangle.
Yeah, and what we didn't want to do is blow up Brixton trying to prove out a porphyry at $500 a meter drilling cost.
Right, because even if you found it, it would cost tens of millions.
Yeah,
of
so
dollars
I think this is a classic major partner project. It's got big scale potential. We have our own district. We have potential for tidewater access. We've now got road access potential on the southern part. So it's evolving into a real district property in its own right.
Mhm.
And I think that's, we just need to get it to a point where a major sees enough potential there that, they'll come in and basically help advance this thing.
Okay. Another question about Montana from a participant, just asking when the field season tends to sort of end. I think it's sort of late September, early October.
Yeah, I think we get a bit more season than like Northern BC. So probably looking like May to October,
Right.
something like that, I would say, depending on what winter's doing every given year. So you got a bit more window, I would say, to like Northwest BC, where we're like June to really September. We got squeezed out of there in early October. So your window's shorter up in Northern BC, but
yeah.
So I think Montana will get a bit more of a window there.
And then in you always have to be careful in the triangle that you don't get snowed in and have people, running out of food and water and heat and things like that.
Well, that was a concern for us, right? When we're looking at the weather forecasts from all our different sources, and we've got 4 or 5 days of provisions. Yeah. And you've got 7 days of winter.
And 30 people in the camp?
Yeah. So
and you can go sometimes a week without being able to fly in.
We haven't had that situation, but when it's a blizzard out, you pretty much can't fly. So you can't endure too many of those days. We haven't been anywhere near those kinds of situations, but it's a pretty tricky thing to navigate, to manage.
Yeah. Question about alteration mapping at Thorn, at surface and in the core. Is that something that the company's done?
We've done a little bit of it. We plan to do more. MDRU has got a new application process going, looking for projects to study and work on. So we're looking at doing that, which would give us more of that type of work. We're actually looking at acquiring some spectral data from Aster, from the satellite data that's currently available. And then we've done some Gaussian mapping and that sort of thing. So we want to do more of that. And then that's going to whittle down to specific areas that we can do more detailed spectral analysis and get some more satellite data that might be more high resolution. And so we are working on more alteration mapping studies as we go, and even scanning some of the holes that we have. A lot of the historical stuff has not been scanned, so that's one thing that we could look at with the TerraSpec, getting more alteration data.
Yeah, if folks haven't looked into that, some of that satellite data stuff is really, really exciting stuff compared to the old days when I went to school and you were out in the bush with just a compass and
right. It's getting a lot better.
No GIS and stuff like that, and now they're able to look from satellite and give you a lot of information. Yeah,
and I guess it's still a challenge by if you have ice cover or vegetation or glacial cover, it still poses some challenges, but
or really steep terrain.
Yeah, but it does, for considering the size of the block we're trying to tackle, it does help to vector where you want to start getting those boots on the ground. Yeah. So we do have some of the regional government geochem work that we're using as well. So we're going to put all that together and say, okay, we whittle it down to some primary targets that you can at least initially get out and have a poke at.
And again, you can do that any time of year.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of desktop stuff at this stage.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure. I think we've covered.
So it's a deeper target, at least at the Camp Creek area. If we're going to go to Outlaw, that's still, I think, a fairly shallow target, because you saw we pulled some nice surface high-grade gold numbers there. So those would be, I'd say, a couple 100 meters max. I don't think we need to go deep there either. Yeah. Or maybe even less. So it's a mixed bag depending on which project, which target. Now we've got Thorn. We're going to have more than one target to wrestle down.
Okay. That's a great overview. I think we can cut the questions there. Thank you very much for being here. Obviously, Gary and his team are based primarily in Vancouver. They're in town for the Red Cloud Mining Showcase tomorrow, and also, of course, for PDAC
Yeah.
starting Sunday. We'll have lots of video from our conference tomorrow that we'll be posting on our website, redcloudsecurities.com, where you can also access our research. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone and remind them that we're still going strong with our weekly Thursday webinars. Next week at 2 p.m. I'm not sure what the company is yet. Actually, come to think of it, I think we're going to have David Rosenberg, actually. And instead of Derek or I pretending to know anything about economics, we're going to have one of our salespeople here at Red Cloud who actually worked with David at a previous shop. So that'll be exciting. We had David in the office recently, and he's a very interesting guy to listen to. So I'd encourage everybody to register for that one. And I hope everybody has a wonderful and safe PDAC. And we'll see you I'll see you in a couple of weeks or so. Thanks very much for
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.